Yeah, we're recording. And go to a speaker view. So welcome everyone to our law school days. Is it stuck on Destiny? That was supposed to be whoever's speaking, but maybe it's just going to be on, we'll have to see. Maybe it'll just be on Destiny the whole time. Welcome to Law School Days. So we wanted to just offer an opportunity for SAU students present and possibly future SAU students who are thinking about law school to have a chance to meet with some of our best and brightest alumni and kind of find out what they're doing, how they got ready for law school, what their experiences have been. And so that's what we're going to do tonight. So we'll have a bit of interview time with them. I think we'll go by seniority. So we'll go from Clarissa, Brian, and Brian, then Destiny. And I got some questions for them. I might offer some comments from here and there. And then we should have time for a Q&A and we'll open it up at that point. Sound good, everyone? All right. So I'm going to have the, I say students, graduates, law school experts, law school graduates in Clarissa's case, going to have them share a little bit of background about themselves, and then we got some questions for them to take up. So I think we'll begin with Clarissa. I think Clarissa, Brian, and Destiny, you can keep on muted the whole time, I believe.
All right, I might keep a little muted just to keep the background noise down, but can you all hear me okay? I just switched to headphones. Excellent.
That's
okay.
Good.
All right. Yeah, so my name's Clarissa Grimes. I graduated from Spring Arbor in 2014, which is a different universe from it right now, but that's okay. So after I graduated, I didn't go directly to law school. I took a gap year, I guess. I had heard from, I don't know if any of you know Dr. Norwood, but he had done an internship with International Justice Mission. And so I didn't know that was a thing until he mentioned it to me, and that sounded really cool. So I ended up spending a year in Mumbai, India, working with International Justice Mission as without any particular legal bent. There was a legal intern position, but I didn't have it. I just did their administrative intern position and lived in Mumbai for a while. And then I went to law school when I came back, and that was at Michigan State University. So I graduated from Michigan State College of Law in 2018. And then right from there, I started working at the Department of Justice at the Detroit Immigration Court. And that's still where I'm working right now.
Awesome. Brian.
All right. So yeah, hi, I'm Brian. I graduated from Spring Arbor in 2016. I double majored in history and political economy. After I graduated, I actually also went and did a year-long internship with International Justice Mission in Chiang Mai, Thailand. And so I guess there's a pipeline here. So yeah, I also learned about that from Dr. Norwood. While I was working in Thailand, I decided that I wanted to go to law school, and I can talk more about that decision process later. So I applied to law schools. I ended up at the University of Michigan Law School, where I am currently. I'm a third-year student, and yeah, looking forward to being done with the full 7 years of higher education. Yeah, that's a little about me.
Awesome. Destiny.
All right. My name is Destiny. I'm originally from Saginaw, Michigan. I'm living in Lansing right now. I was part of the COVID-19 graduating class at Spring Arbor this May. I double majored in philosophy and history. Now I'm at MSU College of Law in Lansing, and I'm the COVID class there too. So COVID is defining a lot of key moments in my life. So yeah, that's me.
All right, great. Thanks for introducing yourself. So kind of first question is, and we'll kick it back to Clarissa. Why did you decide to go to law school, and maybe when did you know? How did that process work out? Was this something on your own? Did other people kind of help you, work through making that decision? But just, why law school, and when did you know?
Well, I think I didn't really want to go to law school, but I think I just wanted to do everything else a little bit less. And so there was and I just thought law school would be something that I'd be good at. I think there was a lot of my decision-making process that had to do with like, I don't know, I thought that I wanted to contribute in some way. And I was getting feedback from mentors and classmates that maybe I'd be really good at law school, which is maybe sometimes key or like code for you are really argumentative. You need to calm down a little bit. But I did think it was something that I'd be really good at. And I thought that it could be useful. I was really interested in the issue of human trafficking. And I worked with Dr. Norwood a little bit to do my my graduating thesis on human trafficking in Jackson County. And so I thought maybe if I had a law degree, then I would have like people would listen to me, a piece of paper that means people would be able to listen to me and I would be able to do something about the issues that I was seeing in the world. So I think it sort of led me in that direction. I remember even going to visit law schools and thinking like, I don't really know if I like this. I don't know if I like these other law students that seem to be really excited about doing law, but I actually had one of my professors at Michigan State on the visit day. He mentioned like, I didn't really want to go to law school either, but this is why I did it. And it turned out okay for me. And that was really reassuring to me. It's like, oh, that's okay. Like you don't have to really want to be a big shot like corporate lawyer in order to want to go to law school. There can be other reasons as well. Yeah. So I think, and then eventually, yeah, that there's just a process of applying to different places and seeing what happened.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian?
Yeah, so I think for me, I also kind of backed into law school. Like it wasn't, I didn't graduate from undergrad and think immediately, oh, I'm going to go to law school eventually. I knew I wanted to do some kind of graduate school. At first I was thinking, possibly a PhD in history. And then I think Dr. Edwards helped talk me out of that, I think. Just a little bit. I ended up thinking that there wasn't anything in particular that I really, really wanted to study for the rest of my life. And then when I was working in Thailand, a lot of the people I was working with, including my boss, were attorneys. And even though the Thai legal system is very different, getting to work alongside them and see what they were able to do as lawyers made me realize that it's a really useful profession. You can do a ton of things with it. You can help whatever which way you go. If you're a litigator, if you're a corporate lawyer, if you're public interest, you're always helping people in some way, and you always have the opportunity to, at least. And that really appealed to me. And like Clarissa said, I thought this is something that I would be good at. This is something I'm able to do well, and that definitely factored in as well. So all in all, things just kind of fell into place, and I just ended up deciding that this was the right course to take, and I haven't regretted it yet, which I think is a good thing. Although there's still time to regret, but yeah. So that's how I ended up here.
Okay, great. Yeah, Destiny.
So I guess, how did I decide I wanted to go to law school? I am a little bit different. I knew going into undergrad I wanted to go to law school, so I've kind of been able to plan it from the beginning steps of undergrad. In high school, I knew I wanted to go into a career path that would allow me to help people, and I quickly found out I didn't want to go into the medical field. And I kind of just sat down and evaluated the skills set I have and what I'm good at in the classes that I enjoyed, and realized I really like to be academically and intellectually challenged. And I guess law just felt right, and I kind of stuck with it since then.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, thank you for sharing your stories. It's funny how we get where we get in life. My story is probably more like Brian and Clarissa's, for instance. Uh, I knew I wasn't, as an undergraduate pretty early on, I wasn't going to make it as a science person. And I liked reading Stephen King. So I ended up getting into English, then into history, but I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I just knew that I should study what I liked. Um, and I had two professors. I remember the day two professors grabbed me by the arm one day and they said, "You're going to grad school and this is what you need to do to get ready." And I thought to myself, all right, I guess I'm going to grad school and this is what I need to do to get ready. But it really, it just wasn't my decision. It wasn't my radar screen. I needed other people to come along and say that. And, so sometimes it's like, well, uh, these people are doing this thing. It looks pretty cool. So I think I'll do it too. Or I want to do this. Maybe, this major will get me there. Or sometimes like destiny, this is just what I want to do. But a common theme I see with the three of you is service. The law degree was a means to something else, and that was being able to serve the world better, right? Um, and we'll see this. One of the things that the article that they're in the chat, if you want to check out, is getting at is we don't want to get hung up on like we don't going to get hung up on what we study or what we need to study to go to law school. It matters more like why we're studying what we're studying and why we want to go to law school. If we make if we try to make like getting money or having security, oftentimes things will not work out for us. But I think the motivation of service that you all shared is one that will provide a meaningful life for you, and you'll have that security and hopefully have a little money along the way too. But the satisfactory life will come through the service. So I really appreciate you sharing those stories. So next is kind of the legally blonde question, right? I mean, what do most people know about law school? It's from Legally Blonde, what it's like. So you've gone through law school now. You're in law school. You're just beginning law school. What's it like? Is it like Legally Blonde? Is it like what you thought it would be? Or we'll start with start with Clarissa.
Oh, you're starting with me. Okay, yeah. I actually hadn't watched Legally Blonde, and then my roommates thought that was a crime, and they're like, "You're going to law school. You have to watch this movie," and so they forced me to watch it. So now I've seen it. But yeah, so it's not I think my exposure to law school or pre-law school was more like The Paper Chase. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that show, but it's just like the traditional like really like mean law professor that like calls on you in the middle of class when you don't know what you're talking about and forces you to humiliate yourself because you don't know what you're talking about. And that did happen once in law school, but for the most part, that is not how things work. It's people like to make a big deal about the Socratic method, which is, I don't like professors will like ask the students questions until the students come up with the right answer. But in my experience, at least at Michigan State, it wasn't very much like that. Mostly like professors would lecture and you would take notes. And so it was familiar in that sense to some of the things you're experiencing now and classes in Spring Arbor, I would imagine. So yeah, it's hard to remember what you expected before you actually experienced it. But I do remember a specific moment sitting in the library at Michigan State where because before I had kind of wondered, like everything felt new and like the material felt new and I wasn't really sure I knew how to succeed in law school, even though I had made it through undergrad just fine, but it just felt different and it felt foreign and I wasn't sure. But I remember sitting in the library like the first or second week and realizing that like, oh, it's pretty much the same. I'm just listening to what the professors say. I'm taking notes about it and then I'm learning that material. And I just had this realization like, oh, this is doable. Like I'm competent and capable to accomplish this. I might have to work hard at it, but that's okay. That's what I've been doing. I know how to do this. And so that was a really reassuring moment where I started to understand what was expected of me.
Great.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
with my experience, I think, sorry, did I interrupt you?
No,
Okay.
you're good.
I think that I have found law school to be really similar to what I expected. I don't think I had seen Legally Blonde until I started law school, and honestly, at least the first half of that movie is not like it's not inaccurate. So it's a little over the top, but it's not off base. I can promise you the Socratic method is alive and well at Michigan. Almost all of my classes are Socratic method, but I've actually found that I love it. Like I now prefer cold calling to lecture because it gets you, the student, really involved. You're always kind of on the edge of your seat, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way, but you are ready and prepared to answer any question, or at least you're working to make yourself that way. And I really appreciate that aspect. One thing that law school has been very different for me than I expected, and this might sound bad, but it's a lot more interesting than I thought it would be. In the sense that there are things that are absolutely very dull. Like go read the Internal Revenue Code. It is a snooze. But honestly, like reading cases can be really interesting. There's some, especially if you like, for me, I like history. There's a ton of the law is history, especially the common law. And I found that to be really fascinating. So honestly, I think that, people kind of get the sense that law school is just really dull, but I haven't found that to be the case.
Great. Destiny, I know you're only in it here a couple months, but how's it been so far?
Let me tell you, no one else this year expected law school to be how it is, if I'm being honest. All my classes are online, and so that's interesting to experience law school for my first semester in a virtual format. None of us expected that. It has its challenges, but I think that my classes are pretty much what I was expecting from law school. The content, the format, the overall workload, it's all pretty much what I was expecting. Like Brian, all of my classes are pretty Socratic method heavy. You read at home, you come to class, you're expected to be able to answer questions about it and talk about it. And so it is pretty Socratic method heavy. But they are as I expected, despite being online. So that's good.
I guess I'll just clarify what I meant by Socratic method.
Oh,
so
sure.
our stories are all lining up. Yes, definitely cold calling happens. That's how they're operating at Michigan State still, even over Zoom. I see. That's got to be a lot of fun. But yeah, so I think I was a little bit afraid that when people would use the Socratic method to the extent that they would try to hide the ball from the students and try to like not kind of like cagily not tell you the answer until you try to figure it out yourself. And that happened a little bit, but to most extent, I found professors were pretty accessible. And if you really didn't understand something, their doors were open and they were able to try to help you explain what was going on. So that's good.
Yeah, I just want to say that, like, yeah, that's definitely a great point. Like professors generally aren't mean about anything. Like they'll be like, it's a yes or no question. Like you got a 50-50 shot, and you say, no, and they're like, you want to try again? And they're just like they're not. I mean, every once in a while you'll get kind of like a crotchety old fellow who takes pleasure in being mean to students, but I think that's by far the exception.
I think the only time I saw Professor B legitimately mean was when a student had clearly not done the reading, and also like he knew ahead of time that it was his day to be called on and had not done the work. And so everyone was kind of like, well, that was mean, but also you deserved it a little bit.
So what you're telling me is I need to start cold calling on students. I don't do that, but you're telling me that I need to start doing that in case.
I mean, I didn't say that. Don't put that on me.
All right, all the students listening, you're going to get cold called on All right. Well, thank you so much. I think that that's really helpful because we do have a number of students on the call who are planning on law school, who will be watching this and are thinking about law school. And so it's good for them to know that there is a little bit of truth to the legally blonde. Professors will call on you. You will have to be ready. But like Brian says, there's an excitement in that. It'll make things go pretty quickly. Okay, so third question for everyone. What a lot of students who know that they want to go to law school or think they want to go to law school, they worry about what they should study. We can talk about that if you want to address that question, but it's also, what do I need to do to get ready? So what are things that you did besides just what you majored in? What are things that you did while an undergraduate or after that to prepare for law school? One subset of that question is, were there certain extracurriculars that you did at Spring Arbor that helped you? I know, for instance, students have told me that their participation in Model Arab League helped them when they went to law school. And the other great question is, how directly did you prepare for the LSATs? Did you spend all the money for the courses? Did you take the practice tests? And how many months before you took the LSAT did you start preparing? I think everybody knows the LSAT scores are really important, but what is your all experiences in terms of getting ready for those? So we'll start with Clarissa.
Yeah, so I think to prepare, I ended up just buying from Barnes and Noble one of those really thick Kaplan LSAT prepare sort of books. So I didn't do any specific class or anything. So there was another student at the time, Gallant, was studying for the LSAT at the same time. And so the two of us kind of buddied up and held each other accountable for making sure we actually went through that book and we're doing practice tests and we're timing ourselves correctly and seeing areas where we could improve. So I just sort of used that book as a guide. And that did the trick for me. I think I probably started studying at the beginning of the semester and then took the LSAT in late October or whenever it was back then. I don't exactly remember. I probably could have put a little bit more work into it. I think my LSAT score wasn't very high. I performed much better at law school than I did on the LSAT to get into law school. But that worked for me. I didn't get accepted into like the top school that I applied to. I applied to U of M and I didn't get into U of M, but I got into Michigan State and I really enjoyed my experience there. So that seemed to work for me. I did do Model Arab League. That was, I think that would have been more helpful if I had taken a track in law school and done more things like moot court or more like in-court advocacy related things. I ended up doing law review and more writing related activities. So, but yes, any chance, if you're interested in the kind of lawyering that's standing up and speaking in court, any chance you get to stand up in front of other people and kind of be on your toes in that way is definitely good practice.
Excellent.
Yeah, for me, so I actually took the LSAT when I was in Thailand, and first off, I don't recommend that. Don't do that. But I started about about 3 months before the test date. I bought all of the Power Score series of LSAT prep, and those are great. I thought those were super helpful. And then for about 3 months, I spent an hour or two a day for pretty much every day, just working on that. I probably took about 20 practice tests to prepare, and then so I took the test, and then it was good enough to get me into most of the schools I was interested in, but I ended up taking it again to try to get higher scholarship offers, and that worked. So I definitely recommend taking the LSAT twice or more if you know, if you're not quite happy with what you get the first time. In terms of preparation in undergrad, I didn't do a ton of extracurriculars. I was involved in Phi Alpha Theta and presented a couple of papers through that, but that was mostly it. Honestly, the most valuable preparation for law school was probably the 80 or so discussion papers that I wrote for Dr. Edwards, because so much of law school is just taking a lot of text and condensing it in a way that makes sense. So yeah, it's law school is a lot of reading and writing, and the better you are at quickly reading and taking that information and making sense of it, the easier it will be.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
You're up, Destiny.
So I took the LSAT most recently out of us three, and I was actually part of the guinea pig LSAT test where they were transitioning from paper testing to virtual testing, and now all testing is virtual. So I did paper study materials, like the books that they were talking about, the Power Score books, but I also did Khan Academy. And Khan Academy, highly recommend if you're studying for the LSAT, go look up Khan Academy after you get off of here, because it's free. And that is one of the biggest barriers to people coming from lower income families to go into the legal profession or get into good schools, is to be able to have access to study materials. And Khan Academy is free. Highly recommend. And it is very formatted just like the online LSAT is. It's really awesome. It tailors it to you and what your strengths and weaknesses are. Free practice tests, like a crazy amount of free practice tests. So Khan Academy, do that. Let me think what else.
What about that?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
That crime class, Destiny.
No. Yeah, I did an independent study with Matt Hill that he was yelling at me about. I wanted to say my timeline first. So the first thing that I did was in J term of 2019. I took a practice test without ever having looked at anything LSAT related. I just took a practice test to see where I was at. And that following semester, I did an independent study for my philosophy major with Matt Hill. And I did, I think, like 6 to 9 hours a week, maybe 12, something like that, of just LSAT work. And that really held me accountable. It honestly was really influential in how well I did on the LSAT. Because I had to do it. It was for a class, and Matt Hill like checked up on me all the time to make sure I was doing it. And so
Now you're being sarcastic now. It sounds like you're.
Nope, I'm serious. I really recommend doing that, because I don't know if I would have done as much practicing had I not had that accountability. So, extracurriculars, I was involved in way too much at Spring Arbor while I was there, but so I just did a lot of extracurriculars. I worked 3 jobs. And so the one thing that those prepared me for was the busyness of law school. Law school is very busy. And since I was so busy in undergrad, it gave me the time management skills that I so desperately need now. Also, shameless plug. If you're not in Model Arab League, do it. It's so much fun. I don't know how much it prepared me for law school because I'm not that far yet, but it's very fun. So there's shameless plug for you, Edwards.
I second that. Yes.
Brian, you never did Model Arab League, right, Brian? Or did you do it 1 year?
No, I never did.
I think it was. I think I tried to get you several years, but
You did, yes.
refused to do it. That's all right. That's all right. So one thing I want to follow up with is because one phase of law school or getting into law school, preparing for law school, is the LSAT scores, and that's very important, right? But the other is kind of more your entire undergraduate work and what you were doing there, and did it prepare you for what you would actually do once you were in law school, right? The LSAT, high LSAT score gets you into law schools, but kind of what do you do when you're there? And it sounds like for all of you, your what you studied, what you concentrated in your majors, in other words, helped you in law school. Is that fair to say? I mean, I know history. Destiny and Brian were both history. Clarissa, I think, was global studies and sociology, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. No, global studies and psychology.
Global studies
I
and
forgot to mention
psychology.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
global studies and psychology.
Mhm.
I mean, a common theme here is everyone double majored, right? And so
Psychology was
that
a
is
minor for me, but
okay, minor. But they had like more than just kind of one interest or concentration. So that's something to think about. Uh, uh, but the other is you all seem to find a good fit between what you did as undergraduates and the work you did in graduate school. Is that fair to say?
yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah,
And it's
I think that's definitely. Oh, sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true that what you do as an undergrad can definitely help. Like if you're already used to a lot of reading and writing and so forth, it's an easier transition. But I don't know, maybe you're leading up to this, but that definitely doesn't limit like what you can do in law school. Like I have got a lot of friends who were technical science, engineering, whatever, who are doing very well in law school. And honestly, those degrees set you up for a lot of success because there aren't a lot of lawyers who can do math.
Yeah.
So if you can do math, then you can work in IP and all kinds of interesting things that otherwise wouldn't be open to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I wanted to highlight here is, and this is something that, again, the article, if you check it out, and a lot of advice about law school will say this, is don't get too hung up on the, what should I study? What should I major in if I want to go to law school? That's a question that a lot of students get stressed out about. And really the best advice, it's advice given in the article, is you should study as an undergraduate what you're interested in. And that's going to provide, your interest and passion for that subject is going to provide an in for you for success in a lot of different fields. And law school is one of those fields. I just want to share a screen quick from that article. Let's see. Not trying to. Sorry, this is usually a lot easier than I'm making it. There we are. So what you have here is, I believe these are 2018 stats. These are kind of the top 10. They're ranked based on what your undergraduate degree was, who went to law school. You can see LSAT scores kind of vary there. You can see a number of applicants admitted. One that's not on there, I think that year math actually had the highest LSAT scores. And so when you think about, well, what should I study that will help me be a good fit for law school? LSAT scores is one of those, and math, psychology, engineering, economics have pretty high LSAT scores. But you also need to think about the humanities. And I realize that for a lot of the people on the Zoom right now, I'm preaching to the choir, but maybe this is for people who might be watching a recorded version of this down the road, that we don't often think of, well, I want to go to law school, I should study literature, or I should study art history, or I should study theology. Actually, those are all great fields for reasons I think Brian mentioned. What do you do in all of these different humanities fields? You're digesting texts of some sort. You're thinking about text. You're writing about text. You're discussing text. You're debating text. And what are you doing in law school? You're primarily doing that as well too. So there's a really nice symbiotic skill set there, but it's also the subject matter too, right? Ultimately, law is a humanity. Law school or laws ultimately reflect some understanding of human nature. And a school like Spring Arbor a lot of programs, a lot of majors deal, are wrestling with the, what is a human being? What is human nature like? Right? You'll get that at a place like Spring Arbor, you'll get that in a nursing program or a social work program, a communications program. You'll get in all of those. No, sorry, just seeing a note there. Of course, in the humanities, we're dealing with that question as well too. So all this is to say that there's a lot of different fields that will, are good preparation for law school. Humanities, as a humanities professor myself, of course, I like to tout English, history, and philosophy significantly. But even with the students, the graduates we're talking with here, they've had a lot of different things that they studied that prepared them well, and they're in school with people who, wide variety of undergraduate backgrounds, and all doing great. So all that is to say, don't get too hung up on the what should I study, what should I major in to get ready for law school. The issue is more you taking advantage of the opportunities that you have. I'd say the other thing is, the other thing, and this goes a little bit back to the bragging, is it's, more important questions are why do you want to go to law school, but also where are you studying to prepare for law school, right? All universities are not the same. Some do better at pressing their students, but also supporting their students as well too. And again, I think I'm probably preaching to the choir here. For the students who are on, they know that Spring Arbor is a place like that. We work you hard, but we support you as well too. But for those of you who are, maybe getting this from a recorded version, we like to say that Spring Arbor should be seen as a law school launch pad around, certainly around Michigan, but around the country as well too. So just needed to make that plug, but we also want to get back to celebrating the accomplishments of these students here. So kind of our final question, and then I'm going to open it up for Q&A. Also we have a few other faculty members on here. Matt Hill, I don't know if Dr. Baker's still with us. If they wanted to, offer some words too. They are working with law students, obviously, as Destiny said, Dr. Hill is. But just one final question for Clarissa, Brian, and Destiny, and that's, what do you hope to do when you're done? Where do you hope to end up? I don't know if you're thinking about that. I know Brian, Destiny, you're just at the beginning of this, so you're just maybe thinking about how do I just get through this weird Zoom semester, where you just don't have the contact with the students that you might want. Brian, you're kind of in the middle of it, so you're maybe thinking about this. And Clarissa, you're on the other side. You're already out doing work. So, I mean, do you kind of see where you're at right now, where you want to be long term, or do you have other plans? So maybe if each of you could just kind of say, where do you think you want to end up?
Yeah, so I mentioned that when I started law school, I was interested in the issue of human trafficking specifically. But I think once I got to law school, I realized that wasn't a particularly useful way to articulate the ways in which I wanted to help people, because human trafficking isn't its own isolated thing. People get trafficked because they're vulnerable. And so it was more useful for me to focus on, okay, well, what are the things that make people vulnerable? And one of those things was immigration status. If people are in this country and they lack legal status, then they become a lot more vulnerable to people preying on them. And so I kind of transitioned fully into like studying immigration law. And there's a really cool immigration law clinic at Michigan State College of Law. I don't know if you've encountered that at all yet, Destiny, but if you ever meet the David or Veronica Thronson are the professors there. They're wonderful. So I was able to kind of primarily focus on doing immigration law, which is what I'm doing now. I'm working at the Michigan's Immigration Court in Detroit. I'm clerking for the judges there. And I also ended up, I would say another thing to keep in mind is the thing that you think you're interested when you go into law school may not always be the same thing you're interested in when you leave. And that's very okay, encouraged even. Like, it's very good to be flexible and just remember that, yeah, it as long as you're doing something that feels fulfilling to you and you like it, then that's good. I also ended up kind of accidentally having a concentration in indigenous law, in the Native American law, and so I studied with some professors there. So that wasn't something I was expecting to do, but it was really fun and I really enjoyed that, and that might be a direction that I take in the future. I'm not really sure. I know I just finished I agreed to work for the courts for 2 years, and that just ended in September. And so now I'm staying on indefinitely until I find something else I like to do. I think I really do like working in immigration. I don't I'm not very excited about working for this particular administration. And so I'm thinking that I would like to transition out of that sooner rather than later. We'll see how things go. But regardless of administration, also working for the court is interesting because I'm supposed to be a kind of neutral arbiter of justice. And in my heart, I'm very much not. I'm very much on the side of the respondent and the people in immigration court who are trying to defend themselves so they can stay in the country and stay with their families. So I would really love to work with, there's some really good organizations in Michigan that represent people for free who might not be able to afford immigration attorneys. So one of them is the Michigan Immigrant Rights Center. I would love to work with them someday. But then also I have been, just this past summer, I've been introduced to the idea of something new. So lifelong learning, right? That's one of our Spring Arbor, is it pillars? Yes, that's what we call them. Or the concept, is that what it is? Yeah, okay. But yeah, so I am learning about movement lawyering, which is something I wasn't familiar with. And what that's meant for me is being involved with the protests that started after the murder of George Floyd back in May, I think it was. So I've been in Detroit working with an organization called the National Lawyers Guild. So if you've ever been at a protest or seen footage of a protest, if you see people with these bright lime green hats, they're legal observers that are out there with observing the protest to just sort of make sure that everybody's First Amendment rights are being protected. And so document anything that the police might be doing. And then later on, the National Lawyers Guild often will bring suits against police who are infringing people's rights, and kind of helping to make sure that the right to protest is protected in that way. And so that's something I've been involved in. This has been really cool, a really interesting, a really great experience, not a completely painless experience. I did have, you saw that, Dr. Edwards. I had an incident earlier where the Detroit police were not respecting the legal observers, even though there was an agreement there. And so I got beat up and along with everybody else. But it's been overall a really good experience and really fascinating to learn about, like, well, I'm an immigration lawyer. I don't know anything about criminal law. Now what happens to all of these people who got arrested, and how can we help protect them as much as possible so we can protect the right to protest in our country, because that's a foundational and really important thing. So if anybody ever has questions about that too, I'm always happy to talk about that. It's really fun. So yeah, that's not at all what I intended when I went to law school, but here we are. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you. Brian.
Yeah, so when I came to law school, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. It was international justice mission that first got me interested in law school. So thought maybe I wanted to do some public interest human rights work. I think I kind of quickly realized that if I tried to do that as a career, I would burn out really fast. So it's not the sort of thing that I am wanting to do personally. I think I want to go into private practice and work for a law firm, probably probably civil law. I don't think I want to do criminal law, but I'm not sure if I want to do litigation, which is essentially going to court and being in court, or if I want to do more transactional work with contracts and so forth. so yeah, I'm still kind of figuring that out a little bit. Immediately after I graduate and take the bar, I'm gonna go clerk for a judge in Washington D.C. That's going to be kind of a cool experience to get to work alongside a judge and kind of be behind the scenes in court and kind of see what that's like. And then after that, I'm hoping to come back to Michigan and work for a firm here. I worked for one in Kalamazoo and I really liked it. So hopefully, going to come back and go there.
Yeah, awesome. Destiny, I don't know if you've had much luxury of thinking about the future yet.
No, I haven't really thought about it. I'm keeping my options open, hoping I fall in love with something or find something I'm passionate about. I know I want to help people. I'm pretty sure I don't want to work in a huge firm or corporation because that's not really my scene. I want to be able to work with actual people every day, helping them. And so that's really all I know at this point. Just trying to keep my options open.
Yeah, just to follow up, Destiny, like, I don't know how much you're able to talk with your classmates, across Zoom and things, or if you guys have study groups or whatever, but uh, do you get a lot of from them? Yeah, this is what I want to do. This is absolutely, like, they've already like directed, or they're just kind of like, that's really not important at this point in law school. It's just just figure out how to kind of manage a class, manage the day, manage the study schedule, and down the road we'll find out kind of what our preferences are.
I think the typical law school personality is someone who likes to have the answers. And so from what I've encountered, most of my classmates think they know what they want to do and have a plan, but most of them are probably subject to change because that's what everyone, like all the upperclassmen, all of our professors, everyone keeps telling us that. So like the basic question is, what do you want to do? And everyone has an answer, but I don't know if everyone knows that that's what they're going to end up doing.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's it for questions, directed questions that I have for everyone. Got a lot of wonderful feedback from the three of you, so thank you so much for it. What I want to do now is move into kind of a Q&A time. So I think I kind of like this view. I think I'm going to leave it as is. If you have a question for Clarissa, Brian, and Destiny, you can feel free to unmute and you can ask it that way. Or if you want to type it in the chat, I can kind of pick and choose and relay that. But yeah, we're kind of Q&A time here. So what questions would you like to ask our wonderful guests tonight?
Okay, well, I have one. So I know that Brian and Clarissa, you guys didn't immediately go into law school, but I'm curious to know, does it matter what you do between graduating and going to school? Is there a specific job? Should you be working in your major, or do you just want to like save up as much as you can for future schooling costs?
So I applied to law schools and was accepted into law school while I was at my senior year at SAU. And then I also applied to the internship with IJM and just decided to see what would happen. So I ended up deferring my enrollment for a year and then doing the thing. So I didn't have to worry about that as much because I had already been accepted by that point. But I will say that that did give me the opportunity to do a little leveraging with a scholarship. I just at the behest of my dad, who's like, oh yeah, you need to definitely leverage this. He was being his scheming self. So I emailed one of the head admissions officers and I said, hey, like I'm doing this really cool internship over here for a year. Is there any possible way that I could have a scholarship? So I just basically just asked them for money, which was kind of a weird feeling. But he said, yes. He said, yeah, write me an essay about like what you're doing here and how it pertains to what you want to do with your law degree. And so I did. I wrote an essay and they gave me an $8,000 scholarship that I got to take off my tuition that first year, which was amazing. And so I would say, don't be afraid to just make ridiculous asks like that. You never know what might happen. And you can, if you do take a year off, I think whatever you do, you can kind of find an angle, whether it's in your personal statement or like your in your application, to kind of connect it to what you want to do in law school and make it work for you. So I would say don't limit yourself to say like, oh, I can't do that because it won't work for law school. Do what you want to do and then figure out how that ties in.
Yeah, one thing I think to remember is you can spin almost anything to be a positive. Like if you just need to, go make some money for a year or two, that's perfectly okay. And I don't think anybody's gonna think less of you. It's not gonna hurt your admissions profile. I think that if you are interested in and you have the opportunity to do something legal related in a gap year, I think that could be a boost. That could be something that's really helpful. I'm really glad that I took 2 years off and that I went and worked with IJM. I think that helps me a lot. But I don't think that there's any hard and fast rule. I think that you can make anything work. It's just kind of a matter of how you're able to connect it to what you want to do in the law, or even if you aren't able to connect it, that's perfectly fine too. I would say that I'm big proponent of taking a gap year. I think a lot. I mean, sorry, Destiny. I think a lot of people are doing that. Maybe even the majority of people at a lot of law schools are doing that. So yeah, don't be afraid to take a little time off if you're not 100% sure you want to go straight to law school.
Okay, other questions that people have or comments? I think we have a few. We might still have some faculty on. I'm not sure if Dr. Hill is still on. He disappeared from my screen, but Dr. Hill probably works the most with students. He does as he said, does the 1 credit LSAT prep. So he would be someone to maybe talk to if you're thinking about law school. Obviously, you can talk to me. A number of faculty can help you think through that. So if any faculty have any advice who are on, they're welcome to throw that in as well too. But more questions, comments for Destiny, Clarissa, and Brian. Or even if something pops into your guys' heads too that you didn't mention, just a piece of advice for students. Things that
I wanted. That's what I was gonna say. I wanted to mention my thesis in my history major. I actually did like a legal history spin on my history thesis, and that honestly prepared me so much for law school because I was reading so many cases for my like history thesis that like reading the cases the first week of law school was so easy. Like I don't want to make that sound bad or whatever, but like it helped a lot because I had already interacted with that kind of reading material before. So if possible, I would recommend trying to write a paper or read a case in your free time. I don't know. That was really helpful to me.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about a spring arbor is it's not just the attention from the faculty, but it's also the flexibility that we have. So if students want to do something, we know they want to go to law school, there's things that we can do easier than maybe say some other schools that can help students get prepared. I think Destiny, we did then you do an independent study with me, kind of a history of the Constitution or history of interpretation of the Constitution. So you did, a class kind of just on that. And that's not something that we would have on the books. It's not something we would keep as a regular rotation, but here as a student who was interested in law school, is like, well, let's use some of your history credits towards thinking about the Constitution and how it's been interpreted and those kinds of issues. And that's the kind of thing that we can do at a place like Spring Arbor pretty easily for our students. So yeah, great. Other comments, questions for our guests?
If you plan on going to law school right after college, when would be the best time to take the LSAT?
Good question.
Right after your undergrad.
I would say the summer before your last year of undergrad, because then you have a chance to retake it once or twice in the fall if you want to. I only took it once, but I know most people take it a couple times. So if you plan on retaking it, I would say the summer before your last year of undergrad.
So you're probably starting to prepare then that middle of junior year then, maybe early junior year? Okay.
There's no harm in waiting till the fall to take it, but it just gives you extra time, I think, if you take it in the summer. And there's no harm in extra time.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I didn't end up taking it until the fall, but it definitely doesn't hurt to have the extra buffer. If that's something that you want to do and you want to take the time to really do it well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, what I did was I think I took it in September the first time, and I wish I had decided to do it earlier and taken it earlier, because then when I took it the second time, it was in February, and it was still good enough. It was still early enough for the purposes I wanted, but it would have been more useful if I had more time to do it. So get time on your side. The earlier the better, I think, as long as you're prepared.
Good. More questions, comments?
Yeah, I have another question. It relates a bit to the personal statement. When you're writing that, is there something specific that most colleges or law schools are looking at? And do you have any advice on how to craft it in a way to stand out without being too, look at me, so to speak?
My first piece of advice on personal statement: have multiple professors who know you read it. I had Edwards and Baker both read mine, actually, and Hill, who was also in here, and that their advice was monumental. So definitely do that with your personal statements. I think every person's personal statement is very different too. From what I've gathered from a couple of my friends at Michigan State, all of our personal statements were so different. So as long as you're making sure to emphasize your strengths and get across really who you are and who you'll be as a lawyer or law student or whatever, then I think it's a strong personal statement.
Yeah, I would just add to that an emphasis that you shouldn't be trying to write something you think will impress an admissions officer. You should be writing what's unique about you, because every law school admissions office has a bunch of really impressive applications coming through, and it's not so much how you can impress them with what you've done. It's more of how what makes you unique, what's authentic about you. Because if you try to make it something that's not you, then that probably won't come across authentically, and they won't think well of it. But even if you think that you don't have the most impressive experiences to draw from, that's okay. Just write about you, and only you can really know what the best things are. But yeah, get lots of eyeballs on it. The more feedback, the better.
Yeah, I think Destiny and Brian pretty much covered it. I did the same thing. I worked with Dr. Norwood. He looked at it with me, and we did multiple drafts. I think more drafts than I have ever done of anything in my life. But by the end, it was something that was really good, and I was really proud of it, and I felt like it represented me, and it was well written and definitely had 0 typos. So by that point, which is also very important. But yeah, I think they hit the nail on the head there. It's about what makes you unique. Yeah, that's what they're going to be looking for. That's what'll make you stand out.
Starting it is the hardest part also.
Oh my
I
God, so
avoided
hard.
art design for so long because I was like, I don't even know where to start. How do you start writing about yourself? And so
Yeah.
I think I just started typing and started typing and typing and typing until I found something that worked. And then I went off of that one sentence that actually worked. So
It also doesn't get easier to write about yourself. Not a whole lot, because you'll have to write a lot of cover letters kind of explaining who you are when you're applying to different jobs. So kind of the sooner you get comfortable with that and with kind of just jumping into it, the better.
That's great advice.
And I think just like any interview, because that's also ultimately what it is. It's kind of like an interview, just on paper instead of in person. They can look at your grades and they can look at your LSAT score, but they want to make sure that you're a real human being and that you actually want to go to law school, or in my case, like kind of don't want to go to law school, but there's a reason that you're doing it. There's something useful that you want to contribute to the world because of it. And I think that's the purpose of the personal statement, is to show that you are a real human with goals and aspirations. And so if you're able to showcase that and connect something unique about who you are to why you want to go to law school, then that's going to be a really good personal statement.
Yeah, good. So yeah, we got some more time, more questions, comments, advice.
I did want to go off of something Clarissa said earlier about kind of leveraging for scholarship. Do that. Do it if you can, because it works. Okay. I never believed it works, but it does. And it can save you a lot of money in the long haul. So if you think you have a leverage, do it.
Yeah, asking for money is straight up weird. Like it's gross and you don't like it, but I think honestly it's a part of institutional hierarchy that's kind of baked into the system. People who have parents that have gone through law school and family members that gone through law school know that this is the system and know that this is how it works. And people who are coming from families that don't have that kind of background don't know about it. And so it's really important to just not be afraid to ask, and maybe talk with professors or talk with other people in your life or mentors who might have a little bit more of an entrance into that world than you do. I didn't know anything about that, but I mean, I guess I even did a little bit. I had a dad who was like, "Hey, I think you should ask these people for money." But yeah, it's weird, but that's the way the world works sometimes, and so don't be afraid to explore that.
Yeah, for me, it was, so Wayne State and Michigan State are ranked exactly the same for law schools. And so Wayne State offered me a higher amount of tuition for scholarship. And so I went to Michigan State and I said, hey, Wayne State is offering me a higher percentage of tuition. Can you match that? And it got me a lot more money in the long haul. So anything you can do. And you're talking to admissions people. They're not going to be your professors. They're not going to be the ones writing your letters of recommendations one day. So it doesn't hurt to ask, because the worst they could say is no.
Yeah, that's very true. You're not burning any bridges. You're not making yourself look silly. That's just the way that it works.
With that said, are there other places that you should look for outside scholarships? Like, is there a helpful website, or is that more so coming from the school itself?
Just from my personal experience, I'm not really aware of outside scholarships. I know at least at Michigan, it's all within the school. There might be some organizations that, like, if you want to go do a particular area of law, like if you want to go do immigration law, maybe there is an organization out there that will, throw some money at you, but I'm not entirely sure if that exists, but it's possible.
Yeah, I think that does exist. I didn't really take the time to look into it, but I think that it is out there. if that's something you're interested, or if there's something like specific about you or your history where people would be like more likely to give you, if you have something cool, I don't know, if you have like a specific, I don't know, your family member was a decorated member of the military for some reason, maybe there's a scholarship specific to that, I don't know. So it might be worth looking around, but I mostly operated within the school and within those channels.
One thing also about scholarships is that, and you might know this already, but law schools tend to give out higher scholarships than most graduate programs. I mean, unless you're going to do like a fully funded PhD or something. But like I know people who are in like pharmacy school or something like that who are, you know, top of their class, but they've only got a small scholarship. Whereas law school, if you're, I mean, depending on the ranking and how you do on the LSAT, it's a lot more feasible to get a really big scholarship than in most professions and most disciplines.
Also, something that I didn't know going into law school is that at least your first year, you are very much dissuaded from having a job. And so you have to take out loans to live, which is something that I wasn't really prepared for a little while until someone told me. And so that's also a thing, like, even if your tuition is fully covered by a scholarship, chances are your cost of living isn't going to be covered by a scholarship. And so that's something to prepare for too.
So if you do really well on the LSAT, have a really good GPA, there are some schools that like if you are, you know, so far above their median, they might give you full tuition plus stipend. So that's a possibility. I wouldn't count on it, but it's definitely something that could happen.
These guys are incredibly helpful, offering a lot of wonderful advice and knowledge here. I really appreciate it.
Well,
Can I-
our
can I
whole
say one more
lives are stuck in law school, so yeah.
I wanted to say one more thing too. And now as I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure if it will apply to people who are going into law school right now, but I do know that there is a program called the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, that if you do take out a bunch of loans for law school, the federal government, it's like this, if you pay like make 10 years of qualifying payments on like an income-based repayment plan for your loans, then they'll forgive the rest of the loan at the end of that time. So basically, like the idea is that you like make minimum payments for 10 years, which seems like a long time, but it's doable. And then at the end of that time, the government forgives the rest of your loan. So there are also programs like that available. I don't know what, like, you'd obviously have to look up the specific requirements. I don't know if that has changed since I started law school or will change by the time that you guys are in law school. But sometimes that's an option as well.
Yeah, excellent. I think we'll go just maybe one more question. Want to be respectful of our alumni's time here tonight. So if somebody else has a question or comment.
Everyone pray for me. I have my first law school midterm on Monday.
Oh, goodness.
Which class is it?
Contracts.
Which professor do you have?
Spoon.
Yes. Okay. I had Spoon for contracts too. And honestly,
Any advice?
okay, so here's the thing about Professor Spoon is that like so midterms is not really a thing in law school usually. Professor
Midterms
Spoon,
are actually a blessing.
yes. So it's kind of nice not to have midterms, but also the reason Professor Spoon does it is because that's the only experience they're going to have with a law school exam before the actual exam. And he actually sits down with each student individually afterwards and goes over their exam with them and helps them understand what they could have done better. And it is honestly like the most helpful thing. And Professor Spoon is just like the most adorable old
That's good to
man
know.
that you've ever met.
Okay,
And
he's
so
really nice.
you're You're gonna do great. It'll be good. I'm excited for you.
Thanks.
This is great law school information, but law school therapy as well too. This is excellent. Any more questions for our guests? Any more advice you want to part to our students who maybe are thinking about law school?
I think one of the things that I didn't expect about law school is that I think Brian touched on this a little bit, but it's kind of fun. Like, honestly, and maybe I'm like a huge nerd for saying that, but like the idea of like continuing to be in a school setting where you're learning, it's very new and it's very different, and it's a learning, it's training your brain to think in different ways, to think like a lawyer, and it becomes a skill set that will be useful to you in the rest of your life, especially the skills you'll gain in communicating clearly about what you want to say, especially communicating clearly and in a compelling way as well when you're trying to convince somebody of something. And that's a useful skill regardless, even if you don't end up using it. Yeah. So I'd say if law school is something that you're interested in, then don't be afraid of it. Don't talk yourself out of it. It can be a really good experience. It's a lot of money, but it is a really good experience.
Yeah, one other thing I'd add to that is law school is not actually, there's nothing in law school that's really, really hard. There's just a lot of it. And that's the
Yes.
hard part.
Absolutely.
Like you've got, I mean, yeah, any one thing, like one reading, that's not so bad, but when you have to do 3 in one day and that takes like 6 hours and it just kind of piles up, that just the slog, that's what you need to be prepared for. But there's nothing in law school that you can't do.
Thanks for that pep talk.
No, I mean that what you say, it reminds me of my own graduate work, which is there's so much more of it, but it was all history. Like nobody was forcing me to take a chemistry class or astronomy. No, I was a nerd. I liked astronomy and I didn't like chemistry. That was terrible. But I like my science classes and stuff. But the nice thing in graduate school is no one's forcing you to like take a variety of subjects or classes anymore. It's like, it's just this one thing you're focusing on. And you can just really dig deep into it and understand it. And, you'll find out probably in those first couple of years, I really like this. I guess you could find out too, you hate it. But that doesn't sound like that's been anyone's experiences here so far. You found that even with Clarissa, I don't know if I'll like this or not. You got into it and he's like, wow, I really like this. And Brian kind of found himself there. And Destiny, you've been.
That's what I thought about Model Arab League. If you're not in it, do it.
So yeah, just the ability to concentrate on the subject that you're interested in, do a deep dive into it, is something that we don't give you a lot of opportunity to do as an undergraduate. And it's one of the great things, whatever you go to graduate school in, it's one of those great things is that you just really get to know a particular subject really well. And that empowers you to do a lot of different things after that. So that's really good sharing that experience. Again, one more quick last question for anyone.
I don't want to volunteer the other two for this, but I will drop my email in the chat if anybody wants to follow up with any questions. I'm happy to answer those.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be doing that too. That's a good idea.
That's good. I don't know that. I think I have Brian's. I don't think I have Clarissa's or Destiny's anymore. I think Destiny, I just use your Arbor one, but I don't think I have Clarissa. So that's good that you're dropping them in there. Appreciate that. And so yeah, feel free to reach out to Brian, Clarissa, and Destiny as you have more questions down the road. Obviously, feel free to talk with myself or another you know, you can talk to pretty much any SAU professor about your interests, and they can help you out. Obviously, Dr. Hill, Dr. Baker would be good people to talk to. Dr. Norwood would be great to talk to as well. So take advantage of the opportunities that you have with these SAU alumni, you know, volunteering their time and experience to help you get ready for law school. And of course, be in touch with your faculty members if you are thinking about law school or any kind of graduate school. Just be talking about us. You know, it's never too early to start talking about your plans for what you want to do afterwards, after you graduate, you know, and we can help you out with that, right? You know, a nice supportive community here at SAU, and even when the students leave, they're still helping us out here. So well, I don't know about you, but this has been a great time for me. It's been a nice reunion. I loved working with Clarissa, Brian, and Destiny, and so it's great to have them all together here. It's great to see everyone else who are thinking about these things. This is just really cool. So especially to you three, thank you so much for coming back and volunteering your time and sharing your experience. We appreciate that so much. We loved you when you're here. We still love you now. So thank you for that. For all those of you listening in now or listening to recordings down the road, feel free to reach out to us with questions. Otherwise, we will bid you all a good night. Thank you so much for coming out.
Good night, everyone.
Yes, thanks,
Have a good
guys.
night.
All right,
Yeah,
thanks
thank
so
you
much,
for listening.
guys.
It's great to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right, we'll see you all later. Take care.